Buffalo podcast. You were joining your host, Greg Thompson, and tonight we're taking a little bit different path, and we're going to join with a friend of mine here to debate new additions to the Bills and the impact they're having. Tonight, I have joining me my man, Dan Mitchell. Dan, how we doing?
And hey, Greg, I am doing fantastic. I was doing a lot better prior to the Tre White interview this afternoon, but with all things considered, not too bad.
Yeah, so for anyone who's been living under a rock here, it's kind of crazy that we are doing this. Dan and I have been planning this for a little while, and we've been going through different topics and what we're going to talk about and have everything kind of ironed out. And all of a sudden, we jump on and get everything going. And today, Tre White rocks the football world. And it's alerts on, I have Bleacher Report and ESPN and the Bills own channel pushed out alerts on it. So,
I know.
they're opening it up I've had this DM conversation with a bunch of fellow content creators, and I'm just gonna mute the words Tre White until 4:01 p.m. tomorrow, and I can't deal with what's gonna happen. I've taken the stance from the beginning. I'm not going to question or debate anyone's personal decision. Anyone who's
Yeah,
willing to do that, they're putting their families' health and safety above playing football. And how in the world can you question that? I use the easiest one is Marquise Goodwin. He and
for
his wife
sure.
have had 3 miscarriages. They finally had a baby girl who's 5 months old. How in the world can you go to a person like that and say, "Nah, roll the dice and come play football. Come on, you'll be fine."
Yeah.
Like, it's just that's not feasible. So if someone decides to do that, I respect it. Obviously, selfishly as a Bills fan,
Yeah.
how excited I am about the 2020 season. I really
hmm
hope they find a path where he feels like it's safe and healthy to play. But yeah, it could be a little crazy tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Right. Like, honestly, it's tough because Trey's our best player. Like, there's no debate. He's the best player on our team. But once again, that's just from a selfish perspective at the end of the day. And I mean, whatever decision he makes, as much as it pains me to say it, I am going to support it. Right.
Yeah. And you wanna know what's crazy? From everything I've read, there are several players out there who are having their agents vet, do you qualify for high risk? If you qualify for high risk, people are paying attention to the $350,000 stipend instead of the 150. The big difference is you get an accrued season as a veteran that moves your contract forward to what kind of salary you're eligible for. Now, honestly, that doesn't affect players like Tre who are going to get paid way more than what they're eligible for, but a guy who
Yeah.
the difference between a restricted free agent and unrestricted, the difference between getting that next year of the veteran minimum, getting over that threshold of the 5-year vested veteran where you don't have to go through waivers, and I think you qualify for more career benefits down the line. Some of those things really matter, and I could see some players thinking just strategically, hey, I think I'm going to make the roster, but this is one more free year that I get, 350 grand of it now to sit it out. And then if I make the roster next year, that's my 5th year. And all of a sudden I qualify for the career, health benefits and things. I can respect that if somebody's playing a strategic game that way, especially you only qualify for that if you have health risk factors or your immediate family does. So it's not like you can, con your way into it. If those
Yeah.
really qualify, you have legitimate risk. And I have to respect somebody who decides that.
For sure.
So for the moment, let's put that aside. Let's all hope that tomorrow at 4:01 p.m. Tre finds a path to still be on the Buffalo Bills, and we'll hope that that's the case because that also means he decided that was the right thing for he and his family. Let's go into the topic for tonight. What we're going to do is something a little interesting. We decided to take the Cover One fans here and the Don Mafia and play a little home and home series. We're going to do a debate on both sides of new additions to the Bills. We're going to do one topic here on our channel, then we're going to switch over, go on to Dan's channel, and we're going to do the other debate. The one we're going to start with here on the Cover One channel is on the running back topic, and the new addition there is obviously Zach Moss. There's a lot of fans out there that are rightfully pumped about Devin Singletary's second season. There's also some people that, if you step back in a vacuum, Zach Moss was a superior prospect to Devin Singletary when they were both coming out in the draft side by side. Where do you fall in this debate on is Zach Moss a nice backup and a high end compliment, or do you think he could actually push Devin Singletary for the primary role?
Sure. Right now, don't get me wrong. Zach Moss, I was absolutely thrilled once we ended up drafting him. Now, do keep in mind, I did want J.K. Dobbins, but obviously we
Nice.
ended up going with Epinesa instead during that round. But Zach Moss was, especially when it comes down to this specific year, the NFL is basically a running back by committee league, right? And once we ended up drafting Zach Moss, I had his role within the offense already ingrained in my mind. And that is exclusively going to be that third down back and goal line back. A guy that has a completely different running style from Devin Singletary, like that bulldozer that can punish defensive lines and really be the guy that Frank Gore would have been for us, say that he was 9 years younger. Um, that's really what I'm seeing with Zach Moss this year. I don't foresee him really taking over the majority of the snaps. I still believe that Devin Singletary is going to be the guy that's seeing about 60 to 70% of the snaps, and Zach Moss will be that situational back, but which will ultimately make Devin Singletary a lot better. That's where I stand so far.
No, and I think honestly that's the most likely scenario. Although 9 years younger Frank Gore would make him what, like 34, 33, 30.
Yeah, yeah, it
So
seems like it. It
it's
seems like it, man.
so I think that's spot on. I think that they've shown, whether it's Chris Ivory, whether it's Frank Gore, the number 2 running back role in Buffalo is a legit role. They don't have some, some of those seasons with Zeke Elliott and Le'Veon Bell and Christian McCaffrey where they're getting like 90% of the touches. And I think Christian McCaffrey played something crazy like 97% of the snaps or some insane number for a
Yeah,
running back. That's just not the way that the Brian Dable offense or Sean McDermott's philosophy is built. So I think you're 100% spot on for the beginning of the year. I'm a little bit
hmm
curious that I think there'll be some games that if the Bills jump out to a lead and they're hammering away and kind of milking the clock and really trying to wear down the team in the second half, I think you could have individual games where Zach Moss has more touches because he ends up being that battering ram down the line. I
very
think that
interesting.
there's games where it could get into the hot hand scenario where if he's running hot, they might give him some more touches. I would be shocked if at the end of the year, Devin Singletary doesn't have more touches and isn't the more valuable overall offensive weapon, but they both do a lot of similar things as far as versatility out of the backfield, contact balance, ability to break tackles, and that, one of them's 5'11, 223, one of them's 5'7, 203. I think that there's some reason that you could even see someone could make the argument that the setup of Zach Moss being the 60% and Devin Singletary being the 40% might be the better utilization for the two of them. I don't see that happening in 2020. I won't be
Mm,
shocked if that's a possibility in the
of
future.
course. Yeah. And so, yeah, of course, like honestly, with that last take, I'm not necessarily saying that Zach Moss is incapable of being like that first string running back, like the guy that can handle 60 to 70% of the touches. I mean, he is hands down 110%. Um, he's able to do that. Now, this is a question that I was actually going to pose to you because you mentioned during the first half of the season that Devin Singletary largely he's going to be taking the snaps. And then maybe we get into that scenario where there's, certain situational games where Zach Moss might be the lead back at the end of the day. Now, would that be the same reason? Because I believe it was Paul from hashtag sports that actually ended up bringing this up last season, which was super interesting. The reason Devin Singletary really didn't start until halfway through the season last year was just because with rookie running backs, it's almost better to sort of gradually make them ease into the NFL season because they're making that transition from college football to the NFL. And do you think that's going to be something similar with Zach Moss and why that situation of him taking more carries won't be until the second half of the season?
Yeah. So I've always wondered, there's plenty of studies that show that the rookie wall can be a real thing. And that if you have guys who are used to playing 10, 11, 12 games, that all of a sudden playing preseason, a longer training camp, 16 games plus the playoffs, you get to that point where you're playing 6, 7, 8 more games than you've ever played in your career. That can be real. Like the impact of that and making that jump of playing against grown men who do this for a profession, that can be a real wall that guys hit. So I've always wondered, is that easing in just preemptively assuming that, hey, maybe we can kind of ease the workload and avoid hitting that rookie wall? Is it things like schematic understanding, blitz pickup, nuance of knowing what to do, and it takes a minute to learn the offensive system and the calls and the trust of the quarterback? It's probably kind of a big cocktail of all those things that it just normally makes sense, or that you have the alternative where you didn't need to put that guy in. And I think even last year, as much as Frank Gore did painfully wear down, I think
Mhm.
fans only remember the last 8 games of the year and don't remember that we probably don't win that Tennessee game without him. We
Of
were
course.
in that Colts game because of him. He had several really strong games at the beginning of the year, and obviously then, Father Time's undefeated. So that is what it is. But when Devin Singletary tweaked his hammy, I think against the Giants or the Bengals, whichever one of those first, second, or third game it was, we needed Frank Gore for that. So would it have been the same if he didn't tweak that hammy and had a chance to jump right into it? I think this year we have the luxury that we don't need to really give a stress test to Zach Moss. We have Devin Singletary. We know he's good. You can allow Zach Moss to come in to be a complementary role. And if he's capable more than that, it's all gravy.
Of course. Of course. And so this year, I am absolutely pumped to see what Devin Singletary can do, because I mean, really just looking back at what he was able to accomplish with realistically just half a season under his belt. I mean, he rushed for over 700 yards. He and so he nabbed a couple of touchdowns right at the end of the day. And I'm like super, super excited to see what he can do with a full 16 game season, seeing that he
100%.
stay healthy.
And I think, a lot of people jump into the fantasy end of things. And I've cautioned people that, hey, I think you could see nice efficiency. I think you're going to see more touches than last year, but I don't know if it's a lot more, because I think
Yeah.
that they like Moss, and I think they like that 60-40. Like you said, I could see 70-30 early on, 60-40 for the, 10th to 13th game. And towards the end, it could be 50-50 by the time it gets to that point, if they're right and Zach Moss is what they think he is. But I think Singletary is going to have a really nice season, and it's going to be really dangerous. And that nowadays 12 to 15 touches is probably the right number for anybody. Going more than that can get crazy in today's NFL. So if he ends up 12 to 15 and Zach Moss is 8 to 10, I think that's perfect.
Very interesting.
All right. Anything else on this running back debate before we switch channels and go over and have some fun in your waters?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Actually, I was curious to see how many running backs you think we have on the 53 and who are they? And so we
So
can get the two obviouses out of the way.
yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
very clearly, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss are
Yeah.
as,
Yeah.
like, besides Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds, they're as much of a roster lock as anyone could possibly be.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna get. They've been pretty consistent with four, five if you count a fullback. So they've been pretty consistent with four running backs and a fifth player in that room as a fullback, almost start to finish since Sean McDermott's been here. Now, part of that is because Tywan Jones, or historically a Sonoris Perry or whatever it is, has counted as that kind of player. In the future, I would love if that guy was more of a returner, maybe, and that has some of that. Right now we have the fact that Tywan Jones and Isaiah McKenzie and Andre Roberts are three different humans is a pain. I hate that that's three different roster spots. I'd love if
Yeah.
that was somehow two roster spots between those three people. Um, but for right now, my guess is that it's going to be Zach Moss and Devin Singletary active every game day. Tywan
Mhm.
Jones active every game day as a special teamer and is the in break glass in case of emergency third running back, and TJ Yeldon as the third inactive running back, but a nice luxury to have because
For
he's a
sure.
relatively cheap contract. And if somebody gets hurt, he's that luxury guy that you can plug in and not lose too much. But they release Antonio Williams today, who is maybe
I did see
um
that.
yeah, so some of the pieces that, yeah, I don't think he had a real chance anyways. And then obviously
No.
the legend of Christian Wade will be missed in this preseason this year. But
Oh
I
man, I
I think
know.
it's actually one of the more clear cut ones. I think with a full training camp with preseason games, maybe Reggie Gilliam could have given Patrick DeMarco a run, but I think the running back room and fullback is pretty clear cut.
For sure. For sure. I definitely would have to agree with you.
So we'll see where it goes. I would love to see, I think that that's an area that could be upgraded with, I know Joe Marino's been a big advocate of getting some explosive speed there. So that's probably the angle I'd like to see them play to replace DeMarco next year, Yeldon next year. I hope Reggie Gilliam is a practice squad stash who can replace DeMarco next year. All those pieces I
Mm.
think will come together and you can have some youth and explosion there in the running back room. But for anybody who is listening now and you haven't had a chance, you should be following Dan on Twitter. You should be subscribing to his channel. Great follow, a really good time. Somebody who's great with fan interaction and has a good time with people every day. Dan, tell the people where they can find them. And obviously, when you're listening to this, you can check in the description for our podcast or on our YouTube feed, and you'll see the link for Dan's show as well.
Yeah. And so for sure, guys, you guys can find me, like Greg mentioned, on right on Twitter, Instagram, both at Real Dan Mitchell, and then right over at my YouTube channel at Dan Mitchell. I try to put out as much content as humanly possible. The next video I will be uploading will obviously be the collaboration with Greg over here while we dive in to who sees a bigger benefit of the Stefon Diggs acquisition, Josh Allen or John Brown. So don't miss out on that. It should be uploaded sometime tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Gonna have a lot of fun. We'll talk with Dan here soon and talking about some more additions here. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.